אחר צהריים טובים. איפה יעקב? עשה לי קונטרסט מאוד מאוד רע. שישעת יותר מדי את הקהל, עכשיו אתה יודע, יהיה קשה יותר. אלה המילים האחרונות שאני אומר בעברית, פשוט כי ביקשו ממני לדבר באנגלית. הייתה פה דוברת אנגלית אחת, שאני יודעת עליה, שביקשה שאני אדבר באנגלית, מה שמאוד משמח אותי, כי בדרך כלל אני מדברת על העבודה הזו באנגלית. בשיחה שאני מחזיקה את המיקרופון ככה. כן, לא רגילה. אוקיי, אז יש קליקר? לא מדענה ולא כלום. יש? אין קליקר, אוקיי. טוב, אז so I'm going to switch to English. So the title of my talk, hopefully this will become a bit clearer later on why I chose this title, which is not what you have on the program. Let me start from the beginning. So for those of you familiar with Radiohead, a band, a British band, Radiohead released their In Rainbows album in 2007, and what they did with this album is that they released it online, so purchases were done only online, and they were done in what we now know as pay what you want. So pay what you want, the idea was, and this is the best example, you went online to buy their album, this is what you saw, right? So say that you chose to download one album, which means one copy of the album. And then let's assume that you wanted to go ahead and pay now. So you pressed pay, so you went to the question mark because you see there's no price, right? And it says it is 0. So you go to the question mark, and what it tells you is, we're not in yet, okay. What it tells you is, it's up to you. And you're like, maybe you're puzzled. So you say, well, there's another question mark. Maybe I can press on that and see what exactly they mean. It's up to me. So you press that one. It says, no, really, it's up to you. Okay? And these are actually the screenshots. So then you go and you enter the amount that you want to enter, and the album is yours. Big question, largest question. I need to stand in the center. I need to dance. Okay. So the main question is, was this profitable, right? So did anyone even pay? So we don't really know. What we do know is that there are about estimated $1 million downloads, with about 40% of the people paying something. Now, for those economists around here, I mean those real economists around here, this is kind of a puzzling question, right? Because essentially, why would you pay for something you can get for free, not by stealing, doing anything illegal? Really, you're being told that you can pay 0 and it's fine, it's yours. So my husband and I, we actually heard about this from our IT guy at the university who emailed us and said, hey guys, you have to look at this. And that made us very curious, and we decided to start researching this pay what you want pricing. Today, kind of a bit more broadly defined as consumer elective pricing. So consumers elect how much to pay. And there are a few variations of that. I'll get to a few of those later. So we went and we wanted to see, well, are there any other people, companies, musicians, artists that use this model? And by the way, museums use it all the time. At least in the US, there are many museums that either have pay what you want as their pricing model every day, or they can have every Wednesday is pay what you want day. This guy, anyone familiar with him? Yeah, very specific. I'm not either. It's fine. So this guy is called Girl Talk. And Girl Talk, the artist, what he does usually, he takes other people's music, other musicians' music, and he remixes it and does funny stuff to it. And then traditionally, he posts it online. So you can go online and get his music for free. So he never sells his music, and he makes his money a lot of money, through performances. And one day, Girl Talk decided he's going to release his album and offer people, his fans, the possibility to pay. Okay, so just remember the steady state or the base state is that he's making no money on this, right? Like, definitely nothing. Was this successful? Yeah, generally it was. So more than 600,000 downloads and about $1 million that went into his pocket, which is kind of nice, right? Given again the counterfactual. Now, the average price paid was $149, but, right, and you can say, well, that's not a lot. Yeah, it's not a lot, but if you take, right, and you combine it and you add it up, the bottom line is pretty impressive. And mind you, we're talking about a product, in this case, right, so digital downloads that have no marginal cost, right? So it doesn't cost him anything, right, the one piece that he's selling, right? So there are the fixed costs, and there's nothing beyond that. Okay, so we continued searching, and we wanted to see, someone can always argue and say, well, maybe this is just something that is very idiosyncratic to like the music industry, right? So can we check and see if there's anything else? Sorry, before I go, so Girl Talk, kind of impressively, not being a researcher, never, studying behavioral economics, consumer decision making, etc. A subset of people that decided not to pay, that downloaded without paying, he prompted them to a screen that asked them to say why they decided not to pay. And the two main reasons were, I may donate later, which clearly I hope everyone understands that no one donates later. So no one will go back to the website within a day, 2, 3 a week and will pay anything, right? Or I can't afford to pay. Now, of course you can afford. If you have a computer and you have something to download the music to, you can afford to pay something, right? You can afford to pay like $1, right? Which is also, possible. Okay, so we went ahead and we looked for more data. This game, highly recommended, World of Goo. It's a game available for download online, and essentially it's Goo, and you have to kind of engineer, and gravity pulls it down, and you have to create bridges and whatnot. To celebrate their first year of launch of the game, Humble Indie Bundle, which is software development company, announced that they're going to sell the album, I think it was for a week, using Pay What You Want. And again, but by the way, what I didn't emphasize before is Pay What You Want. Essentially, the idea is that you can pay anything, including zero. And paying zero is fine, okay? It's fine, and that's taken into account. So how did their results look like? Essentially very similar, right? So the number of downloads you have at the top, 83,000 downloads, which is more than they sell on an average month, usually. The price that they paid per customer, right, was $2, which is significantly less. So usually the price of the product is $20. By the way, their data is available online, so anyone that wants to download the data and play with it can do that. But essentially, they announced it was a huge success. They extended it for another week. And one thing that they said, and if you look carefully at the data, you'll find, is that not only this was a success, individuals that came and downloaded this game using Pay What You Want also bought other games, right? So, we can't exactly say if they bought other games because they said, oh, I got this for free, or for a very low price, and I can get another one, or they were just happy, good mood, and they bought another one. We don't know. But the bottom line is that sales for other games also increased, which clearly is a very good thing. Now, they asked individuals to say how they decided how much to pay. And essentially, that's the main responses that they got. So you see at the bottom and at the top, so liking the Pay What You Want model and wanting to support it, that's not funny. So it's not just, oh, I like it, it's cool. What people really mean when they say this, what people are saying is that I like this and I want the company to continue doing this, right? And clearly, if we don't pay anything, people, the company won't be able to do so. So it's in a funny way, it is a selfish thing, right? So it kind of serves you best. That's all I can afford. Okay. What's interesting is that how much I value the game and what it's worth to me, only like 8% of the individuals mentioned that, right? As something that guided their behavior, or their decision how much to pay, which is kind of surprising because what we think is people pay according to, right, how much they value something, right? You think it's great, you're willing to pay more, you'll pay more. If you don't like it, you'll pay less. So everything that I showed you until now is not our data, right? So this is all data that we collected and begged for and eventually received. And in terms of the conclusions, right, so far, those are that people pay for music downloads, which we saw, and then we also know that people pay for video games. But if you think about it, and decide financial constraints and life of the pricing model ahead of actual product valuation, but the real question is, if you're a company, right, if you're a firm, are people really paying more than they would otherwise? So if you want to think about it in a different way, is it a profitable thing for a company to do, or is the company going to lose doing this? So the questions that we asked in several projects, it's kind of been a very fun journey, right? we didn't know it would be so much fun, is what affects people's decisions, right? So how do they decide when they see pay-to want whether to buy the product, right? And if they buy it, how much to pay? And those are two decisions, right? So you can think about it as a two-step decision. So the first explanation that we thought about has to do with this notion of signaling. I'll go very quickly about it. The idea is that a person, right? So anyone bought a book later on, earlier? Yeah, okay. I can ask the lady at the back whose name is Gila. Right. So Gila, you paid an amount and I won't disclose it. Why did you pay that amount? You thought it was fair, okay. What would have happened if you paid 5 shekels? You would have felt. So the idea is that we learn from our behavior, right? I mean, we know that this idea that a good person pays enough or a lot, and a nasty person, a bad person, pays little, right? Or pays nothing. And we all want to feel that we are good people at the end of the day. That's one of the very basic things we know from social sciences, economics, and psychology, and whatnot. Now, interesting thing is to say, imagine you see this person. It's not taken from Uri's examples on recycling. I had it before, maybe, yeah. But say that this person is recycling his trash, and this other person sees them, and he says, wow, this person must really care about the environment, right? Because otherwise, why would he or she go through all the effort of going, taking their stuff, separating, and recycling? Now, the interesting thing is that just as other people look at this person and have these thoughts, also the individual might have that thought. So the person would say, I must really care about the environment, otherwise why would I go through the hassle of doing this, right? So it's kind of telling not only to others something about you, it also tells you something about you. So researchers refer to this part as social signaling, right? So impression management, and to this part as, this part on the right, as self-signaling, or the notion of identity. I'm sorry. Okay, so for the fun part. Our biggest and first study in this project was a project we ran with Disney Research. And the slides are a bit off because we transitioned from a symmetric Mac to not so great PC, but on Mac it looked very symmetric and nice. So, and what did we do here? So we went to Epcot, and at Epcot we went to a ride called Test Track. It's kind of a boring ride because I could survive it, and I can't survive anything exciting. Disney roller coasters. And when you go through the ride and your photo is being taken, right? Like screaming or shouting, or in this case, just bored. Okay. So what we did is we sold these photos under each of these 4 kind of conditions. We either sold it under the fixed price, which was $12.95, or offering it using pay what you want. And essentially, pay what you want. People who came to purchase their product. So when you get off the ride, you're being told your photo is available at the store at the end, and you can pay whatever you want for it. No information in line of it's a special promotion. It's only today. Yesterday we had something else. No, we just. It was very dry. This is today. This is pay what you want day. And then we crossed that with a charitable cause. So we worked together with Make-A-Wish Foundation, which is a charity that's highly identified with Disney, that helps kids with terminal illnesses fulfill their dreams of traveling and doing whatnot. And we said, well, in the fixed, when the fixed price was crossed with Make-A-Wish, the charitable benefit, it was $12.95 and 50% goes to charity, and what was pay what you want, it was essentially the same, pay what you want and 50% goes to charity. And whereas the fixed price with half goes to charity is what we are traditionally refer to as corporate social responsibility, we refer to this one as shared social responsibility, and I don't have time to go into why we chose that name, but the idea is that instead of a company, the corporate saying, how are we going to do this, it's more kind of a shared concept with consumers. And we can debate about that over the break. So how did the data look like? So when the price was $12.95, 0.5% of the individuals who were on the right actually purchased the photo, and clearly they paid $12.95. The difference between 0.5% and 0.6% is essentially the same. I mean, it's essentially the same, right? So there's no difference. People didn't buy more when the charity was benefiting from the purchase. In other words, corporate social responsibility didn't do better than just sales, okay? At all. What happened when we sold the product under pay what you want? 8% purchased the photo, and this is a huge difference for those of you who are not certain, from 0.5% to 8%. But they paid on average 92 cents. Now, 92 cents is precisely the marginal cost of manufacturing a photo for Disney, of printing the photo, like seriously, precisely, which is kind of interesting, at least to us. Now, what happened when we had the shared social responsibility? People paid on average a bit more than $5, but purchase rate dropped by 1/2. Okay, so instead of 8%, only 4% purchased the photo. And whereas we predicted this increase, so we said, yeah, clearly, we're kind of surprised by the decrease in the percentage of number of people that actually purchased the photo, because of what I thought, and I guess what you would have thought if I would have asked you, is like, this one, the pay what you want and 50 goes to charity is like, it's a winner, right? Because you benefit and the charity benefits, and like everyone should be, right? Like jump on that bandwagon, and people didn't. And I'll get to that in a few minutes. What you have here essentially are the contribution to the charity and contribution to the firm. Contribution to the firm are at the bottom, so kind of the purplish color. Contribution to the charity are the orange part of the bar, and clearly you see the pay what you want. So the social responsibility was much more profitable, both for the charity, for Disney, and presumably also for consumers, right? For people who actually purchase the photos. We had a survey company, because Disney, everything is very well organized, with like 15 survey people that worked for them in different days that intercepted various random individuals that left and asked them various questions. Most of those were aimed to see whether the experience was compromised because of pay what you want, enhanced because of pay what you want and whatnot. Disney, everyone is very happy. On a 1 to 10, everyone is like 9.8, and you can't kill it. Everyone is very happy there. So it didn't affect the experience as a whole. Okay, so this puzzling finding, one thing that I want to tell you about is, so I was there for the first day of each of these conditions, so for the pay what you want and the shirts, also the pay what you want and half goes to charity. And the first of those days was the pay what you want. In the pay what you want, the line that we had was, you couldn't see the end of it. And this is a ride that no one ever stands in line for. I mean, after the ride is over, because the merchandise area is horrible. It has like Hummers and all kind of, cars, and it's like boring and whatnot. The line was long. People were, it was like Shuka Carmel or, a flea market. And people didn't open their wallets, so people actually reached their pockets, took a few coins and paid whatever they had in. So no one bothered to open their wallet, no one. In the shared social responsibility day, the line was half, but okay, about as half, right? But half of the people, half of the number of people actually purchased the photo. However, no one was excited, no one was very happy, and you could almost hear the wheels turning. I want to get a good deal for this photo, and the other wheel of like, yeah, but there are like 6 children here. You can't do that, right? People had a hard time figuring out how much to pay. You could literally see that there was no one was shouting and calling their friends and whatnot. So the atmosphere was very much different. And when you try to understand what's going on, was this essentially where I started with is that if I'm paying too little, right, or if I'm not paying enough, and that's a very subjective evaluation, I might signal to myself, tell myself, right, what I will learn from this is this, I'm not a nice person. I don't want to do that, right? So what many people do, and that explains the drop in the number of people that purchase, is that I'm just saying, well, and I don't know what exactly would be a fair price, or maybe you think, well, but the fair price is more than I want to pay, so you just defer purchase. You just say, well, so I don't want to buy anything. I'd rather not, it's just a photo, right? But I don't want to be that nasty person. So this is kind of what we hypothesized. By the way, I'm not going to show you. We did a very similar study, not with a charitable charity, but with another kind of consideration for other replication of the study with a whale-watching boat tour in San Diego. Same results, essentially. So the result is very powerful. What I'm going to tell you about is a study we did in this Austrian Viennese restaurant called Der Wiener Divan, I think that's how you pronounce it. It's been around since 2005. It's a Pakistani buffet in which you eat what you want, pay what you want. Okay. And it's still a business, okay? So it's working. And what we did with them, essentially just one thing. So drinks you pay, a fixed price, or whatever you pay. So the drinks are priced, but the food is not. And traditionally, you pay as you step out. So when you go out, you go by the individual with your piece of paper that your waiter gave you, and you pay at the cash register on your way out. Now, what we did in the study with them was the following. So in order to try and see whether it is really this notion of self-signaling, whether it's really people learning or know that they're going to learn what kind of individual they are based on their payment or their behavior, what we decided to do is to have like two different conditions, right? So in one condition, people will pay as they always do, so on the way out. But in the other condition, they will pay anonymously, right? So they will pay without anyone else observing, okay? So in one case, only you know how much you paid. In the other case, you know how much you paid, but also does the person to whom you're paying, right? Now, if you think about it, those of you who interacted with me or the other individuals that sold the books outside, this says something, right? Some of you definitely, for sure, thought, how much does he or she expect me to pay? What is an okay price? So there is this consideration, right? And the basic belief, or our natural thought about it is that when someone is scrutinizing you or observing you, you'll probably pay more because, right? I mean, they are looking at you. So you're learning about what kind of a person you are, but so do they. So you're going to be like twice careful. Okay, so what did we do? As I told you, payment was either done in private or in public. The private was kind of tricky. Essentially, this wouldn't work, I think, here, with no offense to anyone. In the private condition, individuals received actually an envelope with 20 euros in it in change. And the idea was that if I only have a 10 euro bill and I want to pay 8.25, I won't have to interact with anyone asking for change. So it can really be anonymous, right? I can leave the money, take my change, seal the envelope, and drop it in the box outside. So no one will ever know how much you paid, okay? So that was the idea. There wasn't a cent missing in the accounting of the whole thing at the end of the day, not even one. Now, if you think about it, when you pay anonymously, and these are the assumptions, and I try to make them simpler. So when you pay anonymously, so say Keren is paying anonymously, okay, for Uwe's book. And she says that she decided to pay 200 shekels, okay? She can take the 200 shekels that she paid and say, I'm 200 shekel nice, okay, whatever. I'm this much nice, okay? When Keren pays for the same book, the same amount of money, but she pays it to me or to anyone else, maybe more to me, she will say, she's more likely to say, I am very nice. Part of this payment, the 200, I paid because I'm nice, but then there's this other part, which is really because I don't want Ayelet to think bad things about me, right? So it's really, you can't really tell what part of your payment, to the extent to which your payment actually is a result of you being a nice person, or you wanting to be perceived as a nice person, someone who complies, someone who is altruistic and whatnot. So the idea is that when payment is done in public, the strength of the signal, right? So the extent to which you can use your behavior as a signal to who you are and what kind of person you are is just weaker than if it's done in private. So based on that, essentially, we said, well, we would expect, therefore, that when payments are done in private, people will actually pay more, which is completely, trust me, completely counterintuitive. So it's completely not how anyone thinks about it, including us before the Disney study. And those are essentially the results that we found. So people paid. So by the way, mean payment in the restaurant, the period before, period after, falls under the 450 euros. And when we allowed people to pay in private, they actually paid more. And the difference statistically is significant here. Okay, so just very quickly to wrap on before we get into the surprise. We ran a few more studies. So we looked, we had a series of studies that was actually led by a student at Berkeley, Mina. And in this study, essentially, we varied the percentage that go to charity, right? So in the Disney study, we said 50% goes to charity. So we had another actually, it was a series of studies in which we varied how much go to charity. We used, in the various studies, 1%, 0 goes to charity, 1%, 50%, 99%, and 100%. And essentially what we found is it doesn't matter. The minute charity is mentioned, even with 1%, which was a huge surprise, at least to me, people just give it much. So if there's charity not involved, say that they would give like $2, right? It was for, say, a shopping bag, reusable shopping bag. But the minute a charity is involved, they will pay, say, $3, but it doesn't matter if it's 1% goes to the charity, 50%, even 99%. It's flat. So it's more about the qualitative, right, aspect of the charity as opposed to how much the charity is benefiting. We also contrasted pay what you want with pay it forward. Now, the idea with pay it forward essentially is this notion of, I'll give you the example, San Francisco Cartoon Art Museum have a day, pay what you want day once a month, and we ran this with them and say that you came to the theater, to the museum, and you pay what you want. They were told, it's pay what you want day, you pay how much you want, whatever you want, and you can go in. The pay it forward, if I came, I was told the following. I was told, someone that already entered the museum before you today paid for your admission, and now it's your opportunity to pay for someone else that will arrive later admission, okay? So someone paid for me, and I wasn't told how much, and I'm paying for someone that I will not see, or maybe I'll see, but I won't know it's them, but someone I don't know that will come later. And what we found consistently, and also going back to the lab and running it with coffee mugs and whatnot, is whenever, in all the experiments, people pay much more when it's paid forward. And this was kind of a puzzling result too, because it's really the same, right? You're paying for the admission to the museum. It's not really important if it's for yourself or someone else. And after a lot of thinking and more studies, what we realized and found experimentally is that what was happening. So when I'm telling you paid forward, someone else paid for yours, I'm trying to think how much others paid, and I always overestimate. So people always think that others paid more, okay? And therefore they pay more as well, right? So people have this idea that others paid more than they actually did. So this was the paid forward, and the last one almost, we compared pay what you want with pay what you can. I don't have time to go into why we chose to do this, but essentially, you can, at least, I hope I can convince you. So when I'm telling you pay what you want, the idea is that you put me in a more selfish mindset, and when I'm telling you pay what you can, I'm kind of appealing to your better side, to your nice person. In one case, it's like do whatever you want. In the other case, do whatever you can. Those are very different from one another, we thought. And we ran this with selling donuts, selling chocolate chip cookies. We did it selling coffee at UCSD. And pay what you can, people always pay more. In private, I mean, regardless if it's done in private or not, regardless how much you pay, how much you sell, if it's 1 donut, 3 donuts, people just pay more when it's pay what you can. And almost at the end, we wanted to look at the impact of a seller's gender on pay what you want, right? So you can think that if, and by the way, gender is very, very specific, narrowly defined, but you can think about, well, if I'm going to buy something and the seller is someone I like, and I want them to like me, I'll probably pay more, right? So the idea. Now, if you take this notion and you simplify it, you say, well, crossing gender, assuming heterosexuality, right? So crossing gender, right? So if a male sells to a female sells to a man, prices should be higher than if it's the same gender, or not. Any predictions, anyone? So if I were to ask you, men pay more across the board? Okay, for male, for female? Okay, any other thoughts? Women pay, ooh, feminists, okay. Women pay more. Any other thoughts? Will there be a cross gender? So will women pay more when they're paying, when the seller is a male versus a female? Or the other way around, and you don't think? Men will pay more when it's a women, other way around as well? We're not immune. We won't pay more. We'll pay more when it's a man. Women will pay more when? To a woman. Okay, so women just will be nicer. Okay. Okay, so this is the experiment you participated in today, which had some issues, but I'll show you the data. So first of all, the boring stuff. So the range of payment, we actually had a 0. We had 2 1s, and we had 1 5, and the rest was higher. The mean was 38.2. Standard deviation, you can see, the mode and the median were both 50 shekels. Now, if we try to look at it as a more refined way, so what you have at the bottom is seller being a male, seller being a female, seller being A, which I'll get to in a second, buyer being a male, buyer being a female, okay? And what you have on the y-axis are the mean payments. So when the seller is a male, male pay more, women pay, men. Women pay less, okay? Which is really not what I would have predicted. And interestingly enough, this flips completely when the seller is a female, okay? Which is also not, I think, what we would have predicted. Now, the A, and I'm not bragging, would be myself. You see in a second why I'm not bragging. So when I sold, and I didn't choose to sell, it's just that the individuals that were selling during lunch, they couldn't do this. So I found myself working for Uri. Much more, okay? And guys really liked me because they paid much more. That's what I thought at least, okay? And these are kind of the mean, for each of us. And this is where data often gets funny, right? Because you can look at this and say, oh, so let's draw kind of conclusions. But then I said, well, let's take a look at something else that maybe could explain this. And what I looked at says before Uri gave his talk and says after Uri gave his talk. So mean payments. And as you can see, this explains essentially everything, right? So people just, although only 1/3 of the sales were done after the talk, right? People actually paid on average more, yeah. True. And there are many other issues with this experiment if you just want to go into it. So for example, I'll tell you, yeah, I won't go into it. It's much more complicated, but definitely. And I always stood there because I told them. Yeah, okay. But I also believe it's part of right, the books being sold simply after the fact, right? Because people know what it's about, whereas, before they didn't. So I started with a slide that's saying, what happens when you trust consumers. I think this is what happens when you trust consumers. And the bottom line is not that, as companies, as firms, should say, well, we'll just let consumers choose how much to pay always, and this is always going to work, and we're all one big happy family. That's not even remotely close to what I'm about to say or what I'm thinking. But I think that there is place for more trust in consumers, and by the way, vice versa, right? Trust maybe in firms, maybe, I'm not sure. But this is what happens, and there are many companies, there are many individuals that try pay what you want, it didn't work. I'm almost certain that for each one of those, I could explain to you, if we went through it, why it didn't work. Anyone familiar with Panera Bread or Panera Cares, which is their pay what you want cafes in the US? Not doing that great, and I'm happy to talk about it over the break. One thing that I don't know how you thought about it, so how many people bought the book? Okay. pay what you want was fun? Did you enjoy it? Who said no? Why? It's a tough decision. It's really tough. It's really a tough decision. Everyone thinks, ooh, cool. It's not cool. It's really not cool. It's really, and the one individual that paid $5, I don't know if he or she are here. I know if it's a he or she, but I don't want to, incriminate anyone. She came, she dropped the $5, and she left. Now, it's okay to pay $5, right? Because if I'm as a seller telling you, pay what you want, and $0 is fine, $0 is fine, okay? And if as a seller, as a company, we are unable to communicate that piece, that it's okay if you choose to pay nothing, because essentially, it's not the one person that's buying it, right? There's like the whole bunch, and some will pay, and some will not, and some more, and some less. At the end of the day, it will work, but if we're unable to communicate it, then it's hard, and then it's annoying, and then it's kind of, you feel bad about it, and you exit, and the whole experience is not fun, okay? I'm not saying you do it because you want to entertain consumers, but you definitely don't want to make them, feel bad and kind of alienate them. So, Keren really wants me to end. Thank you.
תודה, איילת. האמת, קצת מלחיץ להריץ ניסוי תוך כדי כנס, לא? אז אנחנו יוצאים עכשיו להפסקה של 10 דקות, אנחנו חוזרים לאולם ומתחילים את תחרות הסטארט-אפים שלנו.